I'm live now. I'll share the link. All right. Hello, viewer. How are you doing? It's good to have you on board. And today we'll be discussing sexual and gender-based violence in this era of SGB of COVID-19. All right. So I'd like to start by stating that in this period of lockdown and curfew in some parts of Africa, adolescent girls and women are more at risk of sexual abuse. Sexual and gender-based violence is a crime. As we lock down to keep safe, lock down sexual and gender-based violence to keep someone safe as well. So for many women and girls, the threat looms largest where they should be safest, in their own homes. In some countries, the numbers calling support services has doubled. Meanwhile, healthcare providers and police are overwhelmed and understaffed. So at this particular moment of time, I'm bringing in three guests who are from the CSO sector, from the legal sector, and also from the counseling and psychologist area. So I'm going to start with Dando. Dando, you're going to introduce yourself so that the viewers can get to learn more about you and what you do with regards to SGBV. And then after that, now we'll go to the questions. Kindly go ahead, Dando.
Hello. Thank you, Violet, for this platform. Hello, viewers. My name is Tando Kwinji. I am from Zimbabwe, based in Bulawayo. I work with an organization called Youth for Innovation Trust. And at Youth for Innovation Trust, we work with young people from different walks of life to try and promote social innovation. So now in our promoting social innovation, we work a lot with young people at the grassroots, and we work a lot with gender, and we try to ensure that there is gender equality, and we try to make sure that we work with gender-based violence issues, and actually make sure that young people live their lives to the fullest without violence and without any threats of any kind. Thank you. So that's it briefly about me, Violet.
All right. So now I'd like to go to Alan. Malcolm, kindly introduce yourself.
Yeah, Violet, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Isaac, Thando, I greet you all.
Hello.
Yeah, Alan Malcolm Kwaya. I'm from Men Engage Uganda. Brief about Men Engage Uganda is a network of civil society organization working to engage men and boys in reducing gender inequalities, preventing HIV, ending gender-based violence, and then promoting the health and well-being of women, girls, boys, and men. So basically, our mission is to create a society where men are meaningfully engaged in reproductive health, child health care, including HIV, AIDS, reducing of gender-based violences and socio-economic issues. So in brief, we work with men and boys for gender equality. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So lastly, we are going to, Isaac, you are going to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Violet. Good evening, viewers from Africa and wherever you are watching us from. My name is Isaac Mawel, a counseling psychologist based in Nairobi, working in an hospital as well as running my own private practice, where I've been helping people with different challenges, including but not limited to sexual gender-based violence. Thank you. Welcome to the show.
All right. So I'd like to start with you, Dando. So I'd like you to define what sexual and gender-based violence is, and then kindly elaborate what you are doing as a CSO, civil society organization in Zimbabwe, to curb sexual and gender-based violence.
All right. Thank you very much for your question. So sexual and gender-based violence is actually harm or violence done to the next person because of their gender or because of their sexuality. It is very much rooted in a culture of patriarchy, especially in the world that we live in today. And we see a lot of women who are mostly abused by their male counterparts, and they're abused sexually, physically, and even emotionally. So it's not just women who are abused. When we're talking about gender-based violence, we are also talking about men as well. So, unfortunately, during this COVID crisis that we have right now, cases of gender based violence have increased, and they are rising at very worrying rates. So, there are a lot of cases that are being reported, mostly to non-state actors and call centers that have been set across different countries to actually be dealing with GBV cases in this time of crisis. And even from my own home area, I've seen cases where people have died, people have killed each other in their homes. There is a woman who actually stabbed her husband, and another woman who cut off her son's private parts. So the cases are here, and the cases are worrying. And as most of the countries are increasing the number of days for this lockdown, very little is being done to actually try and address these cases that are being reported. So, as an organization, Youth for Innovation Trust has been trying to try and connect the victims on the ground to the particular help that they need. We've been trying to connect them to organizations who can give them shelter, because being locked down with your abuser is a very difficult thing. So, most of the women have had to try and move out of their homes and find shelter. But you find out that in Zimbabwe, most of our shelters are now full. They are now fully occupied. So, which means there is now need for new shelters for victims of gender-based violence. And I'm sure that this is what is happening across most countries in Africa as well, because GBV and sexual violence is something that we are actually working on getting rid of in our country, in our countries in Africa. So, having said that, you discover that there are a lot of women who really don't know what to do or where to go, because most don't even know the rules and the regulations that are put in place for the lockdown, because most people believe I should not get out of the house, even if it's to report this particular case. So we're trying to connect with these people who are victims online and through any other means, through solidarity and all the other means that we can get, so that we can try and make sure that they get the help that they need. We also try to provide a psychosocial support, and make sure that we give advice where we can, and we make sure that the victims of gender-based violence actually really try to navigate the difficult situations that they are in, so that they can be better people at the end of the day. So it's not really easy for them,
Okay.
because yes, Violet.
All right. Yeah. So I wanted to also ask you, like, you see, like, because of the lockdown and also the partial curfew, you find that even courts of justice have been locked.
Yes.
Yeah, or have been shut. So it's no longer services as usual. So what happens now to now the victims, now to the SGBV survivors at this particular moment? So on the ground, when these people, when these women and girls and also the men who are victims of abuse report, what action is taken?
All right. Before they even report, it's difficult for them to actually go to the police stations, which means most of them are actually just reporting to civil society collectives who have sent out hotlines to assist gender-based violence victims. But those who manage to go to the police stations, you find out that because of the social distancing laws, someone needs to shout their story, because they have to stand a certain distance away from the police officer. And because they have to shout their story, you discover that most police officers end up not connecting with that particular person who is reporting their story. And because they are not connecting with them, they are going to think, this is not a really serious issue. We are dealing with serious issues because we are in a crisis. And most women are actually turned away because their stories are not deemed as serious. So this is an instance that has been happening that I actually witnessed in one police station, and it's very difficult because it's not business as usual. And with the courts being locked down, you'd also find out that whatever case is being reported, that person can only be held in the holding cells, and they can be held in the holding cells for so long. And most of the perpetrators of violence, the abusers, they end up being released back again into the homes, and they have to stay with those women, which is why most shelters are being closed down for the victims of, or let me say, survivors of gender-based violence. So it's a very difficult situation, and quite a number of mechanisms have been put in place to deal with gender-based violence, but they've mostly been put to place by civil society collectives, which means that there is a lot that our governments need to do to address, because our governments have just been addressing the COVID crisis, but they have not been addressing the other crises that come along with the measures that they put in place to control COVID. So they need to actually start opening up their they need to start opening up initiatives and doors to try and address these other issues as well, because if they are not addressed at a state level, then there is still a long way to go, and people are still hurting, and people might not heal in time, and actually be able to live their lives. They might be killing each other instead of being killed by the COVID-19 virus, which is not ideal as well. But it's something that needs to be addressed from a national and at a continental level.
All right. So, so viewer, if you've just joined in, we are discussing sexual and gender-based violence in this era of COVID-19, and looking at even what CSOs on the ground, civil society organizations on the ground, are actually doing. So you might see like some of us are in the dark. It is because there's lack of electricity. Like there was just a power outage. That's the reason why some of the participants are not that visible. So kindly bear with us. So I'd like to ask about the role of the community in curbing sexual gender-based violence. Like at the moment, now there's a lockdown, and we are being told to also to practice social distancing. So how can now a victim be helped if now she cries out for help? How do we go about it? And so I just want to know, like, Dando, because you're in Zimbabwe and you deal daily with the victims of domestic abuse, and also which also incorporates sexual and gender-based violence. How do you cope with this situation?
So the situation is very difficult, but the community has a bigger role to play in keeping sexual and gender-based violence in communities. Because in everything that is happening, it's actually happening around people. And even if we are told to practice social distancing, but someone can still hear what's happening in their neighbor's yard. And I think people need to start talking to each other. There is a saying that maybe we should not be practicing social distancing, but actually just be practicing physical distancing. because physical distancing means that we are going to stay away from each other physically and keep a same distance so that we don't share or transmit or spread further the virus. But then social distancing means that we need to be talking to each. So in the social part, we need to be talking to each other. We need to know what the next person is facing, because as much as this COVID virus is affecting us and our lives and our economies, it's also affecting us psychologically. And because the next person is not talking to you, they are not going to know what's going on in your home, and they are not going to try and intervene when you are being beaten up or when you are being harassed in your household. So the community really has a bigger role to play in curbing sexual and gender-based violence. It's actually very necessary for the community to actually be there before the victims actually go for reporting, to actually try to make sure that whatever, because the hospitals are also closed and all the other systems are being closed, some people may be hurt. So which is, it's necessary for the community to keep an open eye and an open ear, and to try to make sure that where they need to intervene, they actually really intervene. So we also need to start talking about sexual and gender-based violence, and talking about it. We need to talk about it from a frank and honest point of view, because most of the times when people talk about sexual and gender-based violence, they usually talk about it as if it's happening far, far away from them. We need to bring this closer to us in communities and be frank about the harms that it's bringing. And those conversations are going to spark a change in mindset and actually lessen or curb the spread of sexual and gender-based violence. So there's
All
a
right.
lot of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just finish what you wanted to say.
So I wanted to say that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but in the work that needs to be done, we need to be working together as the different stakeholders that are there on the ground. As much as the civil society organizations are doing something, the government also needs to complement the efforts that are actually happening, and the community needs to be there as well. In our
All right.
families, yeah, we also need to do a lot of work to actually make sure that we talk about the elephant in the house, and in talking about it, we are going to find solutions and a way forward to the problem that we are currently facing.
So I want to ask, like, have you in your line of work, have you encountered children who are victims of sexual abuse, who have been abused by their relatives or even close family members?
Yes, very recently I came across a girl who was 13 years old, who was abused by her stepfather. The mother had died and left her with a stepfather, and so that stepfather was actually abusing that young lady. So it was a difficult situation for him. We had to find her a home to stay, and actually make sure that she gets the help that she needs, because she was badly hurt physically and emotionally. And if not a lot is done, maybe in time she might not be the same person again. So there are children that are being hurt. At a time of crisis, it's very easy for us to think that we need to do away with human rights, but actually we should be pushing human rights and defending human rights above everything else. Because if our children are then being abused like this because of the situation that we are currently in, then it means that we are not really doing justice to our mandate as people on earth.
All right. So so I want to so I thank you for your insight. So I'd like now to bring on board Malcolm, so that he can also share with us, like, what they do to reach out to men, because you find that men mostly are the ones now who abuse women, in majority of the SGBV cases. However, there are also men who are also victims of now of also sexual abuse and the other kinds of abuse. So Malcolm, I wanted to know, like, now as Men Engage Africa, how do you engage men so that now they can they can join in this fight against SGBV? Kindly share what you do even in your organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thando. That was something amazing, especially the practical bit of it. One, what can men do? I think that's the way forward. One, we should appreciate the three values of Men Engage. The first value is women are equals. Not that women are equal, but women are equals. So in this regard, we are talking about something like we fully support gender equality and women empowerment. We believe that a more equal world benefits men, boys, and girls. So the moment men understand that a woman is the same as a man, I think that would be a starting point for us to move forward. And then the second is that we men have to act. That's value number two. Men must act. In this regard, we are talking about like to achieve equality for women and everyone in society. Men have to be part of the solution. We have started it and it's working. Because before the victims and then perpetrators. So we want to bring perpetrators on board, and that's why we are saying men must act. And then the other value we have is the value for peace is possible. We believe in peaceful resolutions, and this comes to homes. So how do men come on board after all these values? One, first, men have to appreciate to share power. That's the first thing that has to come in mind. How do you share power? For instance, in this before the COVID, in most cases, in this regard, men used to have power in the form of providing for their families, and then disappearing in the morning and then coming in the afternoon or in the evening, and then they wake up early morning. Now, in this COVID era where everyone is in lockdown, you're home all day, limited movements are allowed, but most times you're home. It's now time to appreciate what women have been doing, and that comes if men appreciate that, you know what, I also need to take part of this. One, we can do, we can wash the utensils at home, you can clean the house, you can mop the house, you can wash the clothes, you can prepare breakfast, you can look after the kids. Yeah, that's the way to divide power in this regard. Not power in the sense that for you, you're going to just sit there in your chair on your couch and then you order for tea. You go back and sleep and then come back and then order for lunch again and then go back, sleep, and then, something like that, which
Okay.
most men haven't appreciated, And then
All right.
the other thing as men, we need also women on board to not only babysit us in regards to now what are you going to do, women have to be appreciative of what men are doing, not sending them away. In this regard, the normal term we normally call it is we call them gatekeepers, So a gentleman is at home doing nothing, and then he thinks about probably washing. And then you're like, hey, why are you washing? That's my work, So women have to also help us. Because the moment I start washing and then you question me, hey, why are you washing? I think that was my work. Then in my mind, I also think again, I'm like, oh, this is not my work, But remember, in this lockdown, we are totally doing nothing, just watching TV and doing probably nothing, And the other thing which made men so powerful is the money, which is now reducing rapidly, And in this case, those who even have, you're not in the capacity to probably show it off like we used to, because you have to buy things limitedly, because you don't know what's coming up. Initially, governments were saying 14 days, now they're extended to 21 days, some are saying even 2 months, So you have to keep money to stay on your side.
Okay,
So
okay. Malcolm, just a minute. I'm going to come back to you. Isaac has just told me that there's a place that he has to rush. So I'd like to engage him before he leaves. So, Isaac, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Isaac, can you hear
Yes.
me? So, Isaac, I wanted to.
Yes.
There's a question I'd like to ask you. First of all, sexual violence is a very traumatic experience, and some of the effects are the psychological torture survivors have to go through. So I'd like to ask you, what are the effects of sexual violence? Have you heard my question?
Yes.
Yeah, kindly elaborate. What are the effects of sexual violence?
Niko Facebook live. Niko Facebook live. Huyu kusikia. Hizi ongea zaidi.
Hello, can you hear me? Isaac? 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 I don't think Isaac can hear me. Malcolm, kindly continue.
Yes, please.
Yes, kindly continue.
Okay, so probably what we need from men is one continuation. We need also men to set up in this time of COVID. We need men to set up timetables, and this time is home timetable. Whereby in the first 2 weeks it was like there are only 2 weeks. So probably I can sleep around, and then later on it's like an holiday or something like that. But we can now think more about it in the form that, let me say, we draft a home timetable, like wake up in the morning, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do. So we need to divide the work amongst ourselves. If you're staying with just a fiancé, then you have to divide the work between yourself. If you have kids around, also extended family or something like that, you have to divide. But this is an opportunity for men in this lockdown. It's an opportunity for men to appreciate and understand our kids and also women, because in most cases we don't interact per se, because it's a relationship based on providing and then living. Now this time around, you're not really providing, but you're just there. Remember what we need in men in this kind of situations, and even before, we needed what we call presence. Presence is an ingredient in parenting. A man being around was an essential ingredient to engage fully with the children, so that they can learn from him and also it better understands them. That also reflects to their wife. Now this time around, the presence we were talking about before was you come with your kid, you take a kid to school, probably on a weekend you rush to a mall for about an hour or two and then bring back the kid. Now this time around, you're at home for about 7-12 hours, 24 hours, you're not doing probably anything. Now this is a time whereby you can assist in homework. This is a time you have to understand what your kids loves best. What's the best color for your child. What behaviors do you want to instill in your daughter or son. But this comes through interaction. But before, we never had this kind of interaction before. So this is an opportunity for men to come and then start connecting. Filling all those dots within their kids, and then their wives also, because before it was more like I'm busy. No one is busy now. The business you have is probably 1 hour on Zoom call or YouTube whatsoever. The rest is you're just there just to provide. And what we need this time around is strictly your presence. And in your presence, we want you to meaningfully engage us. Engage us, me, your wife, me, your daughter, me, your son. Engage us, let's talk, let's say stories, let's bedtime stories, let's do simple plays, let's do exercise together in the morning and then in the evening. That kind of connection limits and prevents a lot of things. One, it prevents what we call violence, because now you attach to each other, so much. Second, it also promotes what we call protection among
Protection and
to
Malcolm.
the point that they will. Hello.
Yes. Now, I think that.
Yeah. Initially, before in when we shift to sexual gender-based violences, the victims of sexual gender-based violences in homes, in most cases, they have no what we call a comforter, the person to run to report to, But if we have this kind of engagements where a man, you as a father, you have time with your kids, you can be the first person to come to in this kind of incidences. In case something happens to your daughter, she will find it very, very easy to come and approach you because you've created that bonding and relationship. But before that, it wasn't there. And then you find girls running to probably a friend. In this case, a friend is not informed enough. Probably also a friend is fearful and everything. So at the end of the day, the case just disappears there before it's even reported, monitored, or something like that. But this kind of relationship where we connect with our kids, with my wife and everything, it brings that kind of bond where everything is smooth, And I also think after COVID, if men do appreciate this kind of practice, I think relationship will further improve. We have been talking to friends, and like, if you're successful, you pass through COVID with your wife, that means that relationship is going to last longer and longer, simply because we believe that the time you've spent together, you've connected so much that you've even learned. Then there was some small joke where someone said that we haven't had football for a period of time. So I went back home early. And then guess what? I found a lady in my house and she gave me food and everything. She looked so nice and very interesting. Surprisingly, she's my wife. So this kind of thing, it may sound like something like funny for people to laugh, but at the end of the day, if you critically look at it, it's what's been going on. We don't get time to talk to things. The only thing we talk about is money. I need money for hair, I need money for this, probably I need to go for this, and that's the kind of relationship we have had before. Yeah, so we need to upgrade this kind of relationship to more intimacy relationship, and then further to understand one another. Leave alone we are doing badly off, so let's go to bed, do something, and then I think we are back together. No, that's not enough. Now let's sit down and settle out issues like adults, and then the other thing we need from men is also to provide that sense of belonging to our family. This has left actually a lot of people wondering, simply because you find a man having about 2 wives or 3 wives, and then lockdown finds you at a specific someone's home. Yeah. So how do you connect with the other 2 wives who probably have like 2 kids or 1? So this is also kind of a check to all of us men to say, like, you know what, there's some things you can't handle, So it's better to stick on 1 wife, settle down with 1 family. 1 wife can give you probably the 2 kids you want. Yeah. If you can't go for the 6 kids, checks and balances, So some men are like, no, for me, I want 10 kids, I want 7 kids and everything, simply because I think I can provide for them. This COVID crisis can give us a check, because something has happened from nowhere. No one is to help you. The person you think will help you, probably your friend or your brother or something, they're also saving. They don't know what's going to happen next, So this is a time for men to also kind of check, like, is it necessary to have many wives? Is it necessary to have many sexual sexual partners? Is it necessary to have kids everywhere? I move from home, get a kid in this country, and then go to the other country, get a kid, go to the other district or something like that. So this is a time where men also have to understand that enough is enough. Probably have to sit down, because we used to talk to men about planning for their family, and the planning they were talking about, like, it's not, So this COVID crisis has brought us to a table whereby we now understand what planning means. So you look at your bank account, and then you look at your family you have at home, and you're like, oh, probably I think with the extra month I can survive. But if you look at the bank account, look at the kids you have at home, and then you look at the extra family you have somewhere, which is even which is even far away from you, plus the limited resources, you're like, oh my God, I'm dead. So this will lead to men switching off their phones. We have had cases on TV. There's a woman who went to today. It was on TV today. A woman went to police with 6 children because the fiance disappeared and switched off the phone. I really don't know what happened to the fiance, but I think I believe it's one of the reasons. Probably he thought he's better with the other spouse somewhere, so he left this one behind. So that's one of the things I think.
And then Malcolm, there is a viewer who has a question for you. So she's asking, she's called Catherine Degwa. She's asking, what are the kind of violences affecting men and boys? Yes.
I think we should get this clear. There's no specific violence for men, and there's no specific violence for boys. Violence is violence. The violence which happens to boys and girls is the same violence which happens to women and men. Why am I saying this? I would have said women and girls separate or whatever. We are all one. If it's sexual violence, it will happen to men, it will happen to women, it will happen to boys, it will happen to girls. Yeah. Though the niche of the gist here is it happens more in women, so that's why the protection has to move to that side. Yeah. But in most cases, it's almost the same. The only problem is to men is they don't really report, and they hide it to themselves, which leads to a lot of mental issues later on, and discomfort and so on. But the violences are the same. There are rape cases in men. Sorry, there is physical violence against the boys and men. There is financial violence, whatever, because at this era, some men don't work nowadays. So also that happens. Also there's a violence where men provide, but women think they are not providing enough. Yet in actual sense, depending on what the man earns, the man is providing what we call enough. That's also some kind of violence. You provide something like 20,000 a day, that's Ugandan shillings, and in your homestead, the amount of money which can sustain you a day is half that. But a woman is not comfortable enough for that, so she wants more. That can also be some kind of violence on men. But they are all the same. Trust me. I don't want to divide them, that this is strictly for men, what or something like that. But I would say they're all the same. All right.
So there's a viewer who has a question for Dando. So Dando, you are being asked whether there is a rise of sexual and gender-based violence at the moment. That's the question you are being asked.
Yes, there is a rise of sexual and gender-based violence, but recently it has been very difficult to differentiate between gender-based violence and just domestic violence. And I think, yes, of course, gender-based violence is part of domestic violence, but there are a lot of cases where women are actually beating up or hurting men. And there are also a lot of cases of men hurting women. So, but to add on to what Malcolm was just saying, yes, violence is just violence. But I think we also need to get to a point where we see men and women not as victims and as perpetrators or abusers, but we try to see people as solutions to the problems that we are currently facing. And when we see someone who has a potential to provide remedies for the situations that we are facing. So these cases are rising, and it's people who are actually hurting each other. But in the cases rising, you discover that most are really not reported mainstream. So which means that there should be measures that are put in place to make sure that these cases are reported to the police as much as they are reported to civil society collectives. We have put forth hotlines to capture what is happening during the crisis in homes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Malcolm, you are being asked, like, you should share your advice to men, like how should they engage more with their wives and children at this particular moment of COVID-19.
Uh,
Now
um,
speak to men now.
I think one of the ways to do it is to play games together. We have indoor games. The one thing I noted about is simply because in this COVID crisis we have been sleeping more, you know.
Mm.
So exercises is one way to break that boredom and laziness and the fact that there's a lot of negative news coming in. People are dying here, people are dying there. You may die tomorrow. Blah blah blah. So people are scared and in a fearful state of mind or something like that. So one of the way to go around it is one, and this is to men, is to exercise. So men will want to exercise maybe early in the morning or in the evening. So how does your family come in? One, don't exercise alone. We want to create that kind of bond. So call your fiancé, call your kids, and like, hey, let's exercise. Make it fun. That's when you start to connect and be friends. And then the other one is those indoor games. They are playing cards. There is what we call Ludo. There's chess. And then there's also sing-alongs on TV and everything. So in that kind of sense, you can do with your daughter, you can do with your son, and then they have handouts when they are closing school. What the schools did is to print out some reading materials for the children. So that material you can go to your kids, look at the material, and then probably revise with them. If you haven't been doing this before, trust me, you're going to have to use Google all the time because these questions we have forgotten about them, and these primary questions, someone asks this and this, are like, I don't remember, so you have to Google. So men, you have to be informed, or if something you don't know in this kind of homeworks, please say to your child or to your whatever that I don't know. Let's try to find out. And also that would become a problem in time, simply because we want to keep our power. So if someone asks a question and I don't know the answer, I'll try to cover it around, probably like, leave me alone, you go there, watch TV, or something like, those questions are simple, go ask your mom, something like that. But if we have, as men, appreciate that the question is so difficult, and then you ask with your son or daughter, like, this is very difficult, can we research about it? Yeah, that's a way of telling your child that it's okay to find something so difficult. You can just go further and look around it, do more research other than just hiding away from it. Another thing we can do, especially with women, is to ask and also understand their daily routine. This is the time for you to talk to your fiance about the future plans you have, as a family. If it's girlfriend, ask, like, so what do you want to be in the future? What are your plans after COVID? Like, I want to do this and this and this, blah, 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 blah. Also, this is a time probably should discuss and the impact of COVID and your future plans. Yeah. Simply because this is a time to say, like, oh, we wanted a child maybe next year, but the way I see it, I think we should postpone, And for men, we also need to listen, which is so very important, In most cases, we know what we want, but we don't take time to listen what our partners want. Yeah. So if our partner says something, we're like, no, go away. I don't want to listen to that. This is the right thing. But if you give your partner time to probably explain her side of view in this kind of relationship or in any issue, probably you can also be like, yeah, that's kind of okay. Yeah. So I'm calling upon men to be open. You have to be open in every situation. Whatever comment, idea coming from your kids or spouse or girlfriend, whatever that person is, you have to be open-minded. Listen. The thing is, we don't listen, and if we listen, we don't really understand. We just listen for the sake of listening, and they're like, okay, yeah. But we shall go with the other one. So your idea still sticks there. But let's break it down. Okay, your idea, you want this to be formed, you want this to be done, you want 4 kids. Okay, if you want 4 kids, how are you going to feed them? How much are you earning? How much do you think you'll be earning next time? Have you invested more in your career? How much have you saved, and something like that. It also goes not from you, but also to your partner. Yeah. So if your partner must have 4 kids, what will be her state of mind? What will be her physical state of mind in that kind of sense? Will she be able to have more kids, or after the first kid they do a C-section, and then she's like, no, I don't think, this is kind of difficult. Also, women, you have to understand that we have to put the guns down at times. I want 4 kids, but after 2, she's kind of depressed and everything. You have to understand that this is it. God probably has given me this, and let me stick to this. If something comes in the future, good enough, you had already planned for it. But don't force things to happen, because if you force things to happen, you as a man, you can be happy, but for her, she won't be happy. At the moment each party is not happy, somehow, somewhere, that's where the violence is going to start developing. And for women, it's even worse. They keep things, and they compile them for some period of time. So before you know it, she has fumed into something else, and the cause of that fuming is practically you in the first instance. Yeah. So we have to check ourselves, and now and then we have to talk to our partners. More importantly, we have to talk to our partners all the time. Like, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And the other thing is to move away from all this news about COVID and everything. Trust me, people are dying. People are dying. Me, I've decided not to listen to news on Facebook or anything, but I just listen to news at 7. Yeah, probably it gives me a recap. But if I listen at 1, I'm listening to something, I'm like, oh. Then at 2, I'm listening to something else. Then at 3, I'm also listening to something else. So the whole day I'm going to be so worried. And at home, probably I won't do anything, because they said fear reduces your immune system. So it puts you down. And the moment you're down as a man, trust me, even your family will be down, because they care about you and they think about you. Yeah. So we have to be strong in this crisis, and then forge our way forward.
Okay. There's another question I'd like to ask you, Malcolm. There are men who are also victims of sexual abuse, and they're not coming out. What is your advice to them, especially at this period of COVID-19? Now speak to men and also speak to children.
Definitely coming out is should be the first option, because when you do come out, no matter what's going to happen next, you've lifted the weight off your shoulder, so it's this kind of, you're free now, because you're going to find people who are willing to help you out, and people who will even understand you more in this kind of state. And trust me, if you leave that stage, you feel even far better, and in capacity probably to help more. More people. So whoever is harassed or abused and is a boy, a man out there, and you're quiet simply because you think you're powerful or you're strong enough, trust me, no one is strong enough. The only thing you have to do, maybe probably we can advise means on how to break it down. Some people may not want to go to police and report, but probably you have a friend. Yeah, you can go to a friend, probably break this down. So, or you can do, even men can do the toll-free lines. However much they are fearful, but in this kind of sense, at least you're far away from the person you're connecting to. Yeah? So probably I can say everything because the person I'm talking to is probably in a call center and I'm somewhere else. I think that can also be an alternative for men to call in and say whatever they want, and then they get the right advice. Yeah.
Okay.
You know?
Okay, Malcolm.
And okay.
Yeah. So I'd like now to bring on board the psychologist, because we have already talked about
Isaac Power is back.
Yes, he's back. Yeah. So I'd like to bring back the psychologist, and so that now he can now share in detail, because if I can take you back, what Dando shared, she shared about SGBV, what it is and how it's affecting even women, and also children, and also Malcolm also elaborated further on that. So now I would like to talk about now the psychological aspect now of SGBV. So
Yes.
yeah, so I have a question for you. Isaac. So Isaac, we know that sexual violence is a very traumatic experience, and some of the effects and the psychological torture survivors have to go through. So in your line of work, what are the effects you have seen of sexual violence in some of the victims you've dealt with?
Very good. For one, besides the physical impact of like injury to this person, the medical aspect of infections, the psychological aspect, number one, this is a traumatic incident that will remain for many years in this person if nothing is done. Especially when I talk of nothing is done, is somebody does not see a professional. So it's very important to be able to note, number one, that person will be traumatically disturbed, will suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. That person has a high risk of attempting suicide. That person has a high risk of sexual dysfunctions. Number four, that person is at high risk of abusing drugs as a way of trying to numb the effects of what he has gone through or she has gone through. So those are some of a long-term effect. Actually, something else, when even somebody grows up and maybe somebody was abused while a child. I remember a case I handled of somebody who is 26 and she has serious problems in a relationship. And all this goes back to an incidence of being abused when she was 13 years old. So some of these things affect even relationships and marriages in future. So it's a long-term effect, psychologically, mentally, and physically to this person.
So I'd like to ask you, like, now, a survivor of sexual gender-based violence, how can they heal from now this traumatic experience?
It is possible someone can heal. One comes for counseling, because we take through different number of sessions using different techniques and approaches to be able, number one, to come to tell what you went through. Once you're able to tell them what we went through, that's the first thing. Then number two is to be able maybe to forgive or deal with that fact that this happened. Then now you start focusing on how do I build myself? Somebody's self-esteem has already been messed up. Somebody's life feels like a shame, and society knows what I've gone through and they have a serious impact. So we help this person through different techniques to be able to come to terms with what happened. I have several success stories that have helped a number of people, and they said, it is such a great thing that I never knew that I'll be able to overcome this. And today I can be able to talk about without fear of whatever that will happen. So it is possible when you see a professional counseling psychologist who will be able to help you overcome through this challenge.
All right. So Children also bear the brunt of defilement. What
Mm.
signs do children exhibit if they have been defiled?
Okay, number one, they may withdraw from people and isolate themselves because of a number of things. They may show a lot of fear, and they may also have things like disturbed sleep. Children will have nightmares. They wake up at night and shouting, "I have had a bad dream," and all that. Some may be crying all of a sudden and crying, and she doesn't want to talk about it because of the fear that maybe somebody will punish them or what, or they are ashamed of what has happened. And their appetite is disturbed. And some will show things like some things like someone talk about pain, and she's talking about pain, and then you wonder, this pain is not being seen organically. Only this just a manifestation of the deeper lying psychological impact of what happened to these children. Others will get fixated. For example, somebody who is, I remember a case of somebody who is 10 and she's wetting the bed. You wonder, how do you wet bed and you have gone back to fixation? Just here means going back to childhood experience that you had already overcome. Somebody may get wet and do some funny stuff that you wonder, but this is the behavior of a child, not at your age. So these are some of the things that come out, and somebody will be able to notice that this person is disturbed. He's not doing his normal way. If he, for example, he was abused in school, she may refuse to go back to school in fear of what happened in school. If somebody was abused by another relative, when you mention that name or that figure passes by, that person kind of feels, oh, it reminds that guy or that boy of that experience. So any trigger causes some behaviors that are not normal to how this child has been.
All right. So like now, how can a child now report these cases? Should they be trained maybe when when they are very young, on if someone touches you inappropriately, that you should report? So I'd like to hear your views on that. Should parents start teaching their children very early regarding violence, sexual violence?
Parents have a great role there. If we want to save our children, let's start. I like what Malcolm was saying about being involved with children to monitor how they are behaving and what they are saying and connecting with them. Because number one, it's very important to be able to develop a good relationship with your child so that they be able to open up to you and tell you, Mom or Dad, somebody did this to me. So as parents, connect with your children so that they can be able to open up with you and tell you the truth of what they have gone through. Number two, start talking about with children on things like sexuality, that this is correct, but this is not correct. These are the ample effect of if you go through this, what will happen. I remember a case of a 17-year-old who was abused, and she could not talk to the father of what she went through. And the first two sessions, when the third session, I brought in the father, and she was not able to speak about it. And the father was wondering, why is it that you didn't tell me? But looking at the language that the father is expressing, it's a bit disturbing to this child. The poor child feels intimidated. So it's very good to be able to connect these children. Let's empower them by having a good relationship, telling them it's okay to talk about anything that happens. Even if it's a failure, even if it's a mistake, let's empower these children as young as 3 years. Tell me what is happening. And don't ask them the question, why did you do this? In our profession, why is not in our dictionary. Ask them, what made you to do this? What happened? Tell me more about this. How may I help you? What could be the problem? That kind of a thing.
All right. So I'd like to ask you, Isaac, what is your message to policymakers? Because at this time of COVID-19, there isn't focus on SGBV and also need for counseling psychologists. What's your message to policymakers in this
I
era
would
of
wish to
lockdown and curfew?
Yes, I listened to Dando Gwiji in our presentation and how people neglected this topic. I can tell you for a fact, there's nothing greater than COVID-19. There's nothing less than COVID-19. If we are taking keen interest in people who are going through challenges because of infection to COVID-19, then in the same magnitude should we take matters of mental health, matters of sexuality, and any sexual abuse and any other challenge that people could have. Because human beings have to be looked at them holistically. You cannot separate the physical pain that one is going from the psychological pain. Actually, and I'm speaking this from a medical perspective, if the brain is disturbed, then anything else doesn't work. If that person, like now as we talk, there are so many cases of sexual abuse because somebody somewhere is idle and has already had some addiction and other problems and is escalating the same. So if we are taking keen interest in safeguarding people who could be vulnerable to COVID-19 infection and infecting others, let's know that that is just on the physical aspect of this person. So every policymaker, whether it's the Minister of Health, whether it is the police or any other person, let's not downplay the impact of these issues that are mental. Actually, as we talk, more cases, more violence, and unfortunately, we will have more cases after this because of the stress that COVID-19 is bringing in, the case of people not being able to mourn their loved one in the right way as they have been doing before. That changes a lot. The aspect of what we call secondary traumatic stress, for example, the doctors and the nurses and all those of us in the practice, there's secondary trauma because of watching this news. A lot of people are being affected. This lockdown is also affecting people who are being into drugs. They are not able to access the same drugs. So this is causing more problems to them as they suffer from with the symptoms and the complication.
Okay.
And
All right.
yeah.
So So now I'd like yes, thank you, Isaac. So now I'd like to bring in Malcolm to talk about legal aspects with regard now to sexual and gender-based, with regard to sexual and gender-based violence. So Malcolm,
Yeah.
if yes,
Before I go there, I just want to add
yes,
on Isaac's presentation. One, we urge to men that children engagement has to come as early as courtship. And this is the better way to plan for your kids. In most cases, men will wait until the child is about 7 years when the person can start to play football. In this case, if it's a boy, then you pick the boy and then you go start play football with the boy. But no, we are saying that's way overdue. We want early engagement as soon as you even think about giving birth. So in that kind of sense, you plan ahead what you want for your kid, probably what you will do with your kid. So if you start thinking early, that means even selection of a partner who will suit you as a person who will understand one another, and then from there you go to what we call pregnancy. So pregnancy is when you as a man, now I'm talking to men, start feeding the heat, of what women go through. So in that journey of pregnancy, if you are available, please I encourage men to be available. That's when you start now to understand how valuable a child is in society, because for us we think we can just put our sperms everywhere and then production, germination, or whatever you may call it, and then at the end of the day we ripe our fruits and then we go on. But the challenge a woman goes through via pregnancy, if you walk through her shoes, that means by being there, going for hospital checkups together, looking for the food she wants, those back pains, the sleepless nights, requesting for this kind of food, you bring it and then she says, no, I no longer like it, that kind of, So it's kind of really, really nice if you go deep into it. And I think that's when we should start thinking about our kids and caring for our kids. Now, after that, then birth, as long as she or he is out, and then you embrace the kid, be in the hospital with the fiance, go home, prepare food, wash your kid, play with the kid, those are the stages. From that kind of contact, as early as that's when you start to study the body language of a child. Women tend. Have you decided to communicate with an infant, and then she say things you don't understand, but the mom is like, oh, she wants water, yeah, but for you, you're like, what do you want? No. But when a woman comes or the mother comes, and then the mother is like, she wants water. How a child is saying, if the child and you give the child time. Yeah. So my request is we engage children as early as possible. If you haven't got the chance to go through the pregnancy stage, trust me, it's not too late. You can start as early as when it's 20. The moment you enter into your child's life, that's when you should start. But it's recommended you start earlier than that. Then second, everyone is an attention seeker, especially if it's towards someone you love. So this goes to men and women, plus also children. So women, when we're at home, the kids tend to play around us, but we keep on pushing them away, So she go picks maybe a bottle top, and then, Daddy, this is a bottle top. Check, yeah. Then you look at it like, this kid is disturbing me, yeah. Then she gets a nail from nowhere. Daddy, this is a nail, So in this kind of sense, women, you need to understand that that's a sign of love towards you. You need to embrace it, The moment she starts communicating with you, just communicate back. Hey, how are you? This is color red. When they are starting to communicate, this is color red. Oh, that's nice. You're watching TV, and then a monkey passes or a car. Like, hey, that's a car. That's a monkey. You also have to communicate back. That's when you start to create a relationship. So in the advanced stages of, let me say, those kind of abuses, someone can run to you as quickly as possible. This also goes to our spouses, the women, that whenever she comes to you to want to say something, you're like, women are too much, they talk too much, blah, blah, blah. So it applies to you as men, because we're also attention seekers. So we get hungry and then we lock ourselves in the bedroom. So we think now the person you've left outside is now thinking about you. Now he's hungry. Oh, what should I do? That's also seeking attention. That's what we don't know. Yeah. So the moment we understand that we are attention seekers, that means we have to give attention to people, and people have to give attention to us. So it's a both way. We have to receive and also give. So that's what I wanted to add on. So if you go to the legal imply whatever
before you go to the legal, before you go to the legal aspect, there is a question that has been asked by one of the viewers. You have said that parents should teach children about sexuality even at a young age. What age? So at what age should they start teaching children about sexuality? Even Isaac can chip in as well. No, it's for you. It's for you, Malcolm.
No, the question should be is what's sexuality in this kind of sense. Yeah, if a person knows how to be with the kids and also appreciate the kids, there are specific information for every stage in life. You understand? So one, when we go for birth, I have a daughter. She's getting 3 years now. For instance, there are things I tell her, then she understands that it's bad. For instance, if she's walking naked, I'm like, go put on pants. Yeah. So in a mind, if I keep on saying that over and over again, she nowadays just come like, Daddy, I want to put on pants. Yeah, that's a form of communication and learning that, you know what, now you're growing up, I think you should now start putting on panty, because not everyone will be pleased with you moving out. You know, in most cases, when you say not everyone will be pleased, it's like you're telling a child not to appreciate who she is. But in this case, we are protecting from those people who are bad. However much you teach so much, there are people who are just perverts. Yeah. So we are trying to get them on board at the same time. But in the meantime, let's also do our part. So when she grows a bit older, then you start bringing in. Let me say a person is 7 years. What has a person learned when from between, let me say, 3 to 7? In that period of time, they are watching cartoons, they are watching movies, telemundos, there are a lot of kissing, music videos, a lot of shaking, this and that, you know. So in a nutshell, this kid has compiled all you're denying him or her into one specific folder. So it's just there searching around. What's this in actual sense? So it's you to break it down. You're like, no. This is this, this is this, this is this. And it's even easier for parents who are open. Now nowadays parents can, it wasn't too much in Africa now, kissing and hugging or embracing your child, you know. Oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, I like you so much. You have nice eyes. Oh, look at your lips, you know. So that's a way to build confidence in your child, so that when someone else tries to do something, at least the person knows that she's already beautiful, you know. She doesn't have to seek for attention or I would say approval from someone else that the person is beautiful, you know. So a kiss, a peck here and there, oh, come here, my sweet daughter, or something like that. Those are the things men have failed to do, and fellow men, and in this case, the bad ones are doing them. So in this case, the bad ones get the goal done. For instance, if I'm a father to my daughter and I don't appreciate who she is, how she dresses, oh, you're so beautiful, that car looks good on you, oh, you have nice eyes, oh, nice lips, oh, look at that smile, something like that. That means the moment she goes out of your surrounding or something, there's someone who will appreciate her like that. And then that's a relationship built, you know. So she's like, oh, so I'm beautiful. And then this other person will introduce her to the things we don't want right now. That's the violence cases, those are the rape cases and everything. So it's if it's possible, depending on appropriate information at the given stages, introduce as soon as possible.
All right. So so I'd like now to come so that we can discuss now the legal aspects. So Malcolm, if the sexual crime has happened, what legal actions can be taken? In short, what can the survivor do once they have been sexually molested?
Yeah, excuse me. There are a lot of steps, but to break them down, I think they can be from individual, then community, then police, and then it goes to court. Yeah. But for a sexually abused person, the first thing we all advise people to do, or for your case to stand in court, and this is where the problem comes in. There are many cases which are reported, but there's no evidence to there's no substantial evidence for someone to go to jail or to take away that perpetrator. So in most cases, they become like rumors. Rumor had it, rumor did this, and something like that. But what we recommend is, and also we advise, probably even the guidelines would say that in case of rape, one of the things you should do is you rush to the hospital. then from the hospital, we are thinking that they can examine you and then remove the evidence, yeah, left by the perpetrator. And then the clothes you're wearing shouldn't be washed; they should be kept, yeah. And then you talk to the person you feel comfortable with, and then from there you can move to the police station. Though it's kind of tricky to the point that police itself recommends its own examiners, yeah, which makes it kind of quite complicated simply because depending on where I've been raped from, and if I'm to go to police, and our police system, sometimes they're like, we don't have fuel to take you to the hospital and something like that. But the recommended one would be like check up first, and then leave the clothes you've been with in during that time, keep them safe. Then from there, you can go, in fact, you can go and wash yourself. After that, you can go and wash yourself, pick someone you trust, and then you can report the case to police. So the police can get the evidence, and then they compile a file. If a file is substantial enough, according to police, which is so, I don't know, because this is where also another problem comes in, because even a file before going to court, the DPP, that's a category in police, depending on the country you're coming from, police has to also ascertain some small evidence to make your court stand, to make your case fileable to court, if you understand what I'm saying. So also that's kind of a challenge, because even the police itself may be like, I don't think the evidence is substantial enough to take it to court, so let's leave it here. But if it's substantial enough, then we'll take it to court, and then in court, that's where we, in fact, even let me break it down. So in court, let me start with court. In court, that's where we get a lot of backlash. Actually, backlash is in police and court, simply because, one, in court, in most cases, after the victim sitting down, the survivor, sitting down and then analyzing the situation, they sometimes say, what am I going to get from this? Yeah, because they are mentally disturbed at that period of time. They almost don't want anything, yeah, and they are, in most cases, they are poor or something like that. So in most cases, what they are looking at is probably money, yeah, and they have that anger for this person maybe to die or something like that. So if you tell the survivor that, you know what, this is what's going to happen, this person, you have to come to court, and then you take this person to, you give evidence, and then this person goes to jail. In most cases, after visits, maybe court visits number one, she will then say, now what's there for me, you know? And in most cases, they would want maybe to be paid, yeah? And yet in the court system, you don't get paid in that kind of whatever, because it's that person versus the state in this kind of case, because it's a criminal case, it's not a civil case, yeah? Because it's not a civil case, most people even don't follow it up. They're like, that's for the government and that's for the police. Me, I'm done, you know. And even the eyewitnesses, if there was, or people who can be like, yeah, but I saw, and then that guy was passing that side, they also don't follow it up, yeah. So that's our biggest challenge in court. So the person goes to police, and then court, the first hearing, then second hearing, evidence vanishes, blah blah blah, then he dies. Even before court, most cases disappear around police, and this happens in the way that if the perpetrator is kind of rich enough, you report to police, and then he pays, pays the police, and then the file disappears. That's one. Then second, we have had incidences in Uganda where someone was harassed. This was a supermarket owner harassing her worker. So what happened was they reported him to police, and the family of the girl wanted us. It was 5 million shillings, Ugandan shillings. I don't know what that is in Kenyan shillings. So they wanted 5 million shillings.
In dollars, how much is that in dollars?
In dollars it can be. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, it can be 1,300. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the family wanted 1,300 as compensation for what they did to their daughter. But the person was, I would say, arrogant. I was like, nah, that poor girl. No. I'll give you only 500, and 500 is like, I don't know, is it $20 or something? Yeah. So 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 hell broke loose simply because they never negotiated to satisfaction. You understand? That's when the court now proceeded to a bigger police station. Then eventually went to court. But these small post people can negotiate from there, especially in villages. You go report a case and then they take a cow. Oh, okay, take my cow. Simply because people are now taking them to be civil cases, not criminal cases. Yeah, because the question they will ask is, what do I benefit from this now? My daughter is raped. Probably, if the person goes to police now, what? Yeah, first they are leaving us crying with nothing to do and everything. But if someone provides an alternative, it's like, oh, your daughter has been raped, which is so bad, by the way. But we can give you like 2 cows. So people are like, okay. So they're like, okay, bring it on and something like that. That's so bad, but unfortunately, it's happening and it's been happening, and I still think it will still happen simply because of the economic status of our communities and surroundings. And the other problem when it comes to police is the way we handle those cases. Someone comes, she's reporting she has been abused, sexually abused, and then the mean of communication is so bad. Someone is standing on a police officer standing at the desk, and then the person reporting is standing like 2 feet away, and then reporting the case in front of about, I would say, 6-7 people within the police post squeezed in there. Some are police officers, some are other people with other offenses. So this person is not open enough to say this is what happened. And that aside, also the police officers can ask even weird questions. Like a question may be, so are you sure you never wanted? Oh my God, how can you start? Are you sure I never wanted? So you're making this person a victim already, that you're the reason why this case happened. We have a scenario right now. It's not, it has been put on hold. Actually, that's one of the examples of the COVID crisis, the era, and the problem we're having right now. We have a sounding producer, a music producer, and a singer who has been producing music for almost every.
Yeah, I can see. I can see that. I can see that Malcolm has disappeared while he was elaborating a point, but it's understandable. It's because of the net. So I'd like to add something, and I just want to say thank you even for joining us. This is my message now to the national governments all over the world, that I urge all governments to make the prevention and redress of violence against women and girls a key part of their national response plans for COVID-19. If we do this, we are going to ensure that there's going to be a decrease even in the number of SGBV cases that are available, that are taking place on a daily basis. So I just want to say thank you for joining us. I also want to say thank you to my guest, Isaac Maweu. I also want to say thank you to my guest, Alan Mitembo, and also to Dando Gwichi from Zimbabwe for their insightful advice and information. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, kindly go ahead and subscribe. And once you do that, you'll be notified anytime that we are going to host a live show. So I just want to say thank you for your time, and enjoy your evening. Asante.
Karibu.
Oh, all right. So yeah. So thank you and enjoy your evening.